Hi, Peter Mary, the Fun Wedding Guy, and in just a little bit I'm going to be leaving for Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm letting you know that because the next 3 episodes I'm going to look just like this. I don't want anybody to think that I was actually wearing the same shirt for 3 days straight, but I'm going to tape the next 3 episodes today and post them up on Saturday and Sunday. So we're going out to Phoenix because some very good friends of ours, Curtis and Amy, are celebrating the baptism of their 3rd baby boy, Rockford. Their firstborn son is Steele, second is Lincoln, and Steele is actually our godson. So we're really looking forward to spending some time with them and the boys. And Curtis and Amy got married about 5 years ago, and I had the pleasure of serving as the master of ceremonies and entertaining at their wedding. And Curtis is also a member of the Wedding Entertainment Directors Guild. So it's going to be nice to just go out and visit and spend some time in the Phoenix area and go to Oregano's for some great pizza and suicide wings. So today we're going to pick up where we left off as I'm continuing to study the grand entrance video footage that was suggested by DJ Ramu out of the Boston, Rhode Island area. And where we left off yesterday, we were talking about who he's talking to and what he's actually saying about them. And we were focusing primarily on the guests and the welcoming that he was doing to the guests. And there were a couple of things I wanted to continue to expand on from there. And I talked about him introducing himself to the guests. And one of the things that I noticed was on 2 different occasions he told the guests to clap if they were in a good mood. And the purpose behind that really is to make sure the guests are ready to have some fun. He goes on to ask another question, which was, is everybody willing to see the reception of their dreams? Clap twice. When it comes to what's being said, asking the guests if they're willing to see the reception of their dreams seems a little like a disconnect there. And part of the reason why is because the guests aren't there for their reception, they're there for the reception of Lewis and Kristen. Lewis and Kristen are the ones who've been dreaming about their wedding. The guests haven't. And asking the guests if they're willing to see the reception, the wording on it is just all wrong. It's another reason why writing out what you're going to say and being ready to say it will help to make sure that things are being said that are effective and are meaningful. You know, saying something like, are you here to help make sure that Lewis and Kristen have the best wedding they could imagine? That would be a little bit better question because it's tying the guests to the bride and groom and the purpose of the night. But when you ask the guests if they're willing to see the reception of their dreams, the guests honestly haven't been dreaming about the reception. The bride and groom have. So it's one of those questions that once again leaves the audience in kind of a disconnect. And then you ask them to make some noise on the count of 3. You want to test the enthusiasm of the room, and that's the whole purpose of everything that's going on right now. And so the 3 count is done, and after saying the 3 count, instead of letting them cheer on 1, 2, 3, you follow it up by saying, let's make some noise, folks. Well, if you want them to cheer on the count of 3, say 3 and emphasize it in such a way where they cheer. Everybody make some noise for Lewis and Kristen on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Let them cheer. But when you say 1, 2, 3, make some noise, well, you're not really using the 1, 2, 3 for anything but to tell them once again to make some noise. You shouldn't have to tell them if you inflect right and you end on that 3 on a high note and you use some energy there. Honestly, though, I don't think it's really necessary. There are times that I've used that, maybe segueing from open dancing to the cake cutting to create a moment where everybody's cheering and making a lot of noise for the bride and groom, and then when they're cheering, then we transition over to that cake. But in the beginning, to get them warmed up and test their enthusiasm, I just think it's a little overdone, and I see a lot of DJs do it. It's their way of going out and making sure the crowd knows that they're the MC. And then the immediate thing that comes after that is what I like to call talking down to the audience, because the next thing that is said is that was pretty lukewarm. That really wasn't that good. And when you tell the audience they didn't do a very good job, you're talking down to them, and that's a sure way to make sure they disconnect and don't want to connect with or pay attention to or respect you as the master of ceremonies. I mentioned this in the critique of my early footage from 1995. I made the same exact mistake. You never want to tell your audience they did a bad job. There have been times where I get the audience to respond and they don't respond the way that I wanted them to, and the last thing I do now is critique them for it. Instead, I'll put it on me. I'll say, I must not have done that right. Let me try that again. And then I'll say it one more time and get them to cheer. But I made it my fault, not theirs. So if you're going to make it anybody's fault that things didn't go well, put it on yourself, not the audience, and once again, they're going to feel more connected to you and they're going to respect you as the master of ceremonies. But when you start off by saying that was pretty lukewarm, you're really kind of putting it back on them. And one of the things I found interesting is when Ramu was talking to his audience, to the guest, he called them Cranston, Rhode Island. He called them Alpine Country Club. He called them everybody. He was connecting with them in a very general, non-specific way that wasn't connected to why they were actually there, the purpose of why they were there. If you're a rock star and you go, Cleveland, Ohio, we love you, that makes sense because it's probably the only show you're doing in Cleveland, Ohio. But when you're the master of ceremonies at a wedding, once again, it's not a location, it's an event. And when you call the guests a location, you're branding them as being Cranston, Rhode Island. You're branding them as being Alpine Country Club, and they're not. They're not there for the location. They're there for the event. They're there for the bride and groom. So think very carefully about what's being said as you're addressing that group. So then he says, I'm going to do it one more time, make as much noise as you possibly can. 1, 2, 3, that's a little better. And then he focuses everybody's attention on the exit, and he says he's going to put on some motivational music. Once again, telling everybody what you're going to do instead of just doing it. And there were several pieces of feedback that you'd see on Facebook and on the blog where people pointed out that you're telling them you're going to play motivational music, but then you played St. Elmo's Fire. I don't fault you at all for playing St. Elmo's Fire. I've played that many times. It's on my list of suggested songs for introducing the wedding party or introducing the parents. However, if you're going to tell the guests you're about to do something that's going to be motivational, and then you play a song that isn't nearly as motivational, once again, it's that mental disconnect. They start going, he said he was going to do this, but he did this. And the reason you said motivational music is because that's what you say almost all the time. I've watched a lot of the videos, and you use the word motivational music, that phrase, quite commonly. So it's become a rut, a habit pattern, and it doesn't matter if it fits for the moment or not, you still say it. And it didn't fit for St. Elmo's Fire, and the truth was you didn't even need to say it. You could have just started the music and started introducing the people you were introducing. So that's just some food for thought about what you say when you're talking to the guests and how you address them. And one of the final points I'd like to make about this is that you spent about a minute and a half getting this crowd all warmed up to 2 minutes, where you're out there talking, getting them to answer and respond, getting them to clap twice, getting them to make some noise, all so that you could have them energized for the grand entrance. And your purpose was to test their enthusiasm and assert your role as a master of ceremonies. And what I'd like to recommend is that you seriously consider finding a way to make that more streamlined and effective. You don't have to go out in front and do all the repeating stuff to get them to respect you. On the grand entrance footage that I posted on April 11th from my April 10th wedding, if you watch the first 30 seconds, I test their enthusiasm, I introduce myself as a master of ceremonies, and I welcome the out-of-town guests. I do all those 3 things in 30 seconds. And there is no doubt in anybody's mind that that crowd is enthusiastic and ready to welcome the bride and groom. Why? Because they're at a wedding reception. It's a celebration. They're already ready to have fun. If I direct them concisely and clearly enough, they're going to want to. But if I get out there and make them clap and cheer and do a whole bunch of convoluted stuff with questions that don't make any sense, they're going to start disconnecting from that moment forward, and eventually they're going to pay less and less attention to what I have to say. And it isn't about them paying attention to me that's important. What's important is that they don't miss the moments that are coming up later in the day. And as the master of ceremonies, if I don't earn that respect right away and get their attention and keep that focus where it needs to be, later when I need to tell the guests about the cake cutting, or when I need to tell the guests about a special dance that they don't want to miss, if they're starting to check out mentally because I've been playing this way with them instead of connecting with them, they're going to miss some of those moments. And that's where the critique comes from guests who say, yeah, we were at the wedding and the cake cutting was never announced. Maybe it was, but maybe they just quit paying attention because the person on the mic was going on and making people do things that just really were a little convoluted. So that's my feedback on talking to the guests, and tomorrow we're going to take a look at what's being said about the people that are being introduced in regards to the family members and the wedding party members and the guests of honor, the bride and groom. And we're going to break that down into a little bit more detail and talk about ways to make that more effective and more powerful and maybe even create a little bit more energy. So we're going to come back and look at that on tomorrow's edition of the Fun Wedding Guide. My name is Peter Mary. Thanks for watching.